So, let's go. Number 1. The biggest organics haul ever found on Mars. Imagine you're carrying something so precious you refuse to use it for 14 years. The Curiosity rover landed with a handful of sealed chemistry cups, tiny one-shot laboratories filled with a solvent so valuable that mission scientists hoarded them like the last matches on a desert island. Use one on the wrong rock and it's gone forever. Only 2 remained. This spring, they finally lit one. The rock they chose had been sitting in the rover's collection since 2020. A clay sample drilled from an ancient lakebed in Gale Crater. Instead of just baking it like every sample before, Curiosity dissolved it, unlocked it, and out of that one pinch of powder came 21 different carbon-based molecules. The most diverse haul of organic chemistry ever pulled out of Mars. 7 of them had never been seen on that planet before. One of them made everyone sit up straight. A ring of carbon atoms with nitrogen built into it. That structure matters because it belongs to the same chemical family as the molecules that come one step before DNA. Not a fossil, not a microbe. The letters that life's alphabet gets built from, sitting in Martian clay, perfectly preserved for 3.5 billion years. Here's what that means. That rock is older than almost every rock on Earth. Our planet churns and melts and recycles its crust, shredding its own history. Mars doesn't. Mars keeps the receipts. Whatever chemistry happened there at the beginning, it's still there, filed away, waiting. Nobody is saying the word life. The scientists are careful, and they should be, because plain chemistry can build those rings too. But the question is no longer whether Mars has the ingredients. The question is why a planet with the ingredients looks the way it does now. And the answer to that starts much, much deeper. Number 2, Mars has a solid inner core. There's a dead robot on Mars that won't stop making discoveries. The InSight lander froze to death under a blanket of dust in 2022. But before it died, it spent 4 years listening. Every Marsquake, every meteorite strike, every shudder that rolled through the planet's body went into its archive. And in September of 2025, scientists digging through that archive found waves that shouldn't have been there. Seismic waves that had traveled all the way through the heart of Mars, and some that had bounced off something hard, buried at the exact center of the planet. Mars has a solid inner core, a frozen metal ball roughly 600 kilometers across, locked inside a sea of liquid iron. Seismic waves slam into it and suddenly speed up by around 30%, like sound crossing from water into steel. Until this result, nobody knew if Mars had anything solid in there at all. And this should bother you, because a freezing core is not a dead thing. It's an engine. On Earth, the slow crystallizing of our inner core is exactly what stirs the liquid iron around it, and that stirring generates the magnetic shield that keeps you alive right now. Mars has the engine. Mars has no shield. It shut down billions of years ago. So either that metal ball froze after the shield had already died, the corpse stiffening long after the heart stopped, or something about how planets die is wrong in our textbooks. Either way, you're looking at Earth's future in miniature. Our inner core is still growing too. The same clock is ticking under your feet, it just has more time left on it. Number 3, I say you could dig with a shovel. Every plan for putting humans on Mars has always slammed into the same wall. Water. It's too heavy to bring. Roughly 9 kilograms of supplies for every 1 kilogram of payload, and water is the heaviest thing a body needs. For decades, the ice we knew about sat at the poles, the coldest, darkest, most lethal real estate on the planet. In December of 2025, that wall quietly fell over. Scientists mapping the subsurface found water ice in a place called Amazonas Planitia, flat open plains in the northern hemisphere, not miles down, not entombed at the pole, less than 1 meter below the surface. In some spots, you'd hit it before your shovel got tired. Think about what one hole in that ground gives you. Melt it and you drink. Run a current through it and you breathe. Split it into hydrogen and oxygen and you've made rocket propellant. The ride home, dug out of the dirt. And the terrain above it is flat and boring. which in landing terms means safe. Mission planners have started saying out loud what they used to only hint at: this may be the best place for a human being to set foot on Mars. Notice what just happened there. For 50 years, we picked landing sites by asking where the best science was. Now we're asking where the water is. That's not the logic of visiting a planet. That's the logic of moving in. But before anyone packs, you should probably know what this planet does to its own resources. Because the next discovery is the story of how Mars took its own atmosphere and buried it. Number 4. The missing carbon was there all along. Mars has been hiding a crime scene for 4 billion years, and scientists just found the body. Here's the mystery. Ancient Mars had a thick blanket of carbon dioxide. That's the only way to explain the rivers and lakes that carved its surface. When an atmosphere like that dies, it's supposed to leave evidence. On Earth, carbon dioxide gets pulled out of the sky and locked into rock as carbonate, limestone cliffs, chalk beds, entire mountain ranges of captured sky. Orbiters searched Mars for decades and found almost none. A planet-sized atmosphere vanished without a trace. Then Curiosity drilled into the flank of Mount Sharp, and there it was. Siderite. Iron carbonate, up to 10% of the rock hiding under a layer of sulfate minerals that had been masking it from orbit the entire time. The missing atmosphere wasn't missing. It's in the ground. Which sounds like a tidy ending until you realize what it actually means. Earth does this too, but Earth has a trick. Plate tectonics drags carbonate down into the furnace, melts it, and volcanoes breathe the carbon dioxide back out. A cycle. In and out for 4 billion years. That cycle is why you exist. Mars has no recycling. The carbon went into the rock and never came back out. Every gram of atmosphere that turned to stone was a gram of warmth the planet lost forever. Slowly, quietly, over millions of years, Mars sequestered its own greenhouse effect. The lakes didn't boil away in some catastrophe. The planet's own chemistry strangled them, one buried molecule at a time. And yet, water is stubborn. Even on a world that murdered its own climate, it finds places to survive. Some of them are the last places you'd ever look. Number 5. Frost on the largest volcano in the solar system. Olympus Mons is the kind of thing that shouldn't fit on a planet. A volcano more than twice the height of Everest, with a base the size of France. If you stood on its slope, you couldn't see it. The mountain curves past the horizon in every direction. And every morning, just before dawn, its summit does something impossible. It frosts over. An orbiter caught it first as a strange blue-white shimmer on the caldera floor. There at sunrise, gone within hours. Water frost. On the summits of Olympus Mons and its giant neighbors, in the Martian tropics where sunlight is strongest and where every model said frost simply could not form, the air up there is about 1% as dense as Earth's. That's barely air at all. But those calderas, the collapsed craters at each summit, are traps. Cold air pools inside them at night like water in a bowl, and a microclimate forms. The planet exhales, and for a few hours the breath freezes onto the rim. The layer is absurdly thin, about 1/100th of a millimeter, the width of a human hair. But spread it across calderas that could swallow cities, and it adds up to roughly 150,000 tons of water, swapping between the ground and the sky every single day. 60 Olympic swimming pools worth, appearing and evaporating like a tide. Let that settle. This is supposed to be a dead planet. Dead planets don't have tides. Dead planets don't have weather that comes and goes with the dawn. Somewhere between alive and dead, there's a word we don't have yet. Mars keeps insisting we invent it. Number 6, groundwater outlived the lakes. From orbit, it looks like something wove a spiderweb across the lower slopes of Mount Sharp. Ridges of pale rock crisscrossing for kilometers in tidy geometric patterns, a formation geologists call boxwork. Curiosity spent years crawling toward it. This year, it finally arrived, and the webs turned out to be a message. Here's how you make boxwork. First, you crack the bedrock, fractures running in every direction. Then you soak it, Groundwater, loaded with dissolved minerals, creeping through every crack and slowly cementing them shut, like mortar poured into the planet's wounds. Then you wait 1 billion years while the wind sands away all the soft rock around them. What's left standing is the skeleton of the plumbing, the cracks themselves turned to stone and raised in relief. The message is in the timing. That mineral cement went in when Mars's surface was already dying, when the lakes were shrinking and the sky was thinning. Up top, the planet was becoming the red desert you know. But underneath, in the dark, water was still moving, still flowing, still chemically alive, feeding minerals through the cracks like a bloodstream that hadn't gotten the news. Every place on Earth where a water percolates through warm rock, something lives there. We're not saying anything lived in Mount Sharp's plumbing. Nobody knows. But the window where something could have, that window just got longer, maybe hundreds of millions of years longer. Underground, where the radiation can't reach and the cold can't bite. Remember this one. The water retreating downward, outliving the surface. That's not a detail, that's the plot. Number 7. Half of Mars was never magnetized. And now we know why. When the first magnetometers flew over Mars, they found something that made no sense. The planet's ancient crust remembers magnetism the way tape remembers sound. Old rock records the field that existed when it formed. And on Mars, the recording is deranged. The southern half of the planet is covered in intense magnetic scars. The northern half is almost silent. For 50 years, the field's fingerprints have only been on half the planet. Nobody could explain it. Maybe giant impacts erased the north? The craters don't line up. Now a team has built simulations that produce exactly this pattern, and their answer is stranger than the mystery. The magnetic field wasn't erased in the north. It was never there. Their model says the young Martian core was fully molten, and the mantle above it was uneven, hotter under the north, cooler under the south. Heat only escapes where the lid is cold. So the core's energy poured out through the southern hemisphere alone, and the dynamo it powered generated a magnetic field over just one side of the planet. A shield, born lopsided. Half of Mars stood exposed to the solar wind from birth. But hold on, that model needs a fully molten core to work, and you already know, as from a few minutes ago, and that InSight just found a solid ball frozen in the middle of Mars. Both results come from the same planet. Both are peer-reviewed. Both cannot be true at the same time unless the core froze long after the dynamo died. 2 papers arguing over a corpse's autopsy. This is science happening live, and Mars is refusing to make it easy. Number 8, the lakes had no ice lid. There's a slab of rock in Gale Crater with ripples frozen into it. Little corrugated waves in the stone, a few centimeters apart, marching in neat rows. You've seen this exact pattern 100 times. Walk any beach on Earth at low tide and it's underfoot. Those ripples are 3.7 billion years old. And they just settled an argument about what ancient Mars actually was. See, for years, the compromise position was that early Mars was cold. That its lakes survived only under permanent lids of ice, like lakes in Antarctica. Liquid water, sure, but sealed away from the sky. A frozen, grudging version of habitable. Ripples destroy that picture. Ripples like these are made by waves, and waves are made by wind dragging across open water. Wind cannot touch water through an ice lid. No open surface, no waves, no ripples. It's that simple, and it's carved in stone, in 2 separate rock beds. So on that day, 3.7 billion years ago, there was a lake with a shoreline and a breeze. Small waves rolling across shallow water, lapping against red sand, under an open sky warm enough to keep it all liquid. You could have stood there without a single instrument telling you which planet you were on. Here's the uncomfortable part. Climate scientists still can't fully explain it. The young sun was dimmer then. Every model struggles to keep Mars that warm, that long. The math says those lakes shouldn't have been open. The rocks say they were. When the models and the rocks disagree, the rocks win. We just don't know what we're missing yet. Number 9, two-faced Mars, solved from the inside. Look at a globe of Mars and you'll notice the planet has 2 completely different faces. The southern hemisphere is ancient, cratered, and high. Battered highlands standing kilometers above everything else. The northern third is smooth, young, and sunken. a vast lowland basin so flat it looks like someone sanded it. The drop between them can reach 6 kilometers. It's the largest single feature on any rocky world we know of, and it's been Mars's oldest unsolved case. 2 suspects have been fighting over it for 50 years. Suspect 1, a giant impact. Something the size of a small planet slammed into the north and gouged it out. Suspect 2, the planet did this to itself from the inside with slow currents of churning mantle rock reshaping the crust from below. Insight's ghost just pointed at a suspect. Buried in the lander's quake archive, scientists located a new cluster of Mars quakes in the southern highlands and compared them with quakes from the northern lowlands. The southern quakes lose their energy dramatically faster. Their vibrations get eaten on the way up. Something under the southern crust is soaking up seismic energy. The most natural culprit, heat. The mantle under the highlands is hotter, and it's convecting, churning like a lava lamp in extreme slow motion. That's exactly what the inside job theory predicts, and it fits the impact timeline poorly. The verdict isn't final. But the planet's biggest scar increasingly looks self-inflicted. Notice the theme. The magnetic field, decided by the interior. The 2 faces, carved by the interior. Whatever Mars is, the outside was never in charge. Number 10. The air didn't escape. Mars ate it. You've probably heard the standard story of how Mars lost its air. The magnetic shield died, and the solar wind spent billions of years sandblasting the atmosphere into space, atom by atom. It's a good story. It's measurably true. It's also apparently not the whole story, because the numbers never quite added up. Strip away everything the solar wind can plausibly take, and a huge share of the ancient atmosphere is still unaccounted for. Gone, but with no exit wound. 2 geologists ran the chemistry, and their answer is genuinely unsettling. The atmosphere didn't all leave. The planet ate it. Here's the mechanism. Ancient Mars had water trickling down through its crust, and that crust is rich in a mineral called olivine. Water plus olivine kicks off a reaction that releases hydrogen. Hydrogen meets the carbon dioxide dissolved in that water, and together they form methane. And methane, it turns out, gets adopted by a very particular kind of clay called smectite, which grips carbon molecules and does not let go. Not for years. For eons. Run that quiet reaction across the whole planet down to about a kilometer of clay-rich crust, and Mars's clays could be holding roughly 80% of the missing air. The sky didn't just escape upward. A lot of it soaked downward, swallowed sip by sip into the mud, converted, and locked away. There's a twist that almost feels like an apology. Methane is rocket fuel. The very atmosphere Mars devoured could one day be mined to launch humans home. The planet stole its own sky, and it's been keeping it in the basement next to something even bigger. Number 11. There's still an ocean down there. Every discovery on this list has been circling one question without saying it out loud. The lakes were real and open. The groundwater outlived them. The frost still breathes. The ice waits under the plains. The clay drank the sky. Where did all the water go? InSight's seismic data has an answer, and it's the biggest one on this list. Between roughly 11 and 20 kilometers down, the vibrations passing through Mars's mid-crust move in a very particular way, the signature of fractured rock that is soaked through, not damp, saturated. The best physical explanation for what the lander recorded is liquid water, filling billions of cracks in the deep bedrock right now as you watch this. The estimated volume is not a puddle. It's enough water to cover the entire surface of Mars in an ocean 1 to 2 kilometers deep, more than the planet is thought to have ever lost. The ocean didn't escape to space, it moved downstairs, and down there, it's warm. The deeper you go, the more the planet's leftover heat rises to meet you. At those depths, liquid water isn't a miracle, it's the default. On Earth, rock at that depth is not sterile. It's inhabited. Entire ecosystems of microbes live in our deep crust, sipping chemical energy in the dark, never seeing the sun. If anything ever lived on Mars, this is where the survivors would be. 3 billion years into the longest siege in history. Here's the part that should keep you up tonight. We can't check. The deepest hole humanity has ever drilled reached about 12 kilometers. On Earth, with unlimited power and a parking lot. On Mars, that ocean might as well be behind glass. So here's the truth this whole list has been building toward. Dead, dry, airless. Mars. That was only ever a description of the outside. The water is inside. The air is inside. The warmth is inside. Mars didn't die. It locked the door. And everything we love about that planet is still in there.